Good evening and welcome to TDM Talk Show. Starting a blog allows you to write about something you're passionate about, to connect with like-minded people, or even to promote a business, product or service. Food and travel are among the most popular categories for bloggers. Tonight's guest created a blog that focuses on those categories. Juliana Loh is a marketing and social media specialist who formed her own communications company with a focus on China and the Asia-Pacific region. She is originally from Singapore, but is now based in Macau and spends a lot of time travelling and eating. Juliana, thanks for joining me on the program.
Thanks for having me on your show.
And by spending a lot of time travelling and eating, I mean it's solely for work purposes, right?
No, a bit of both. A bit of both.
Okay, well, how did you decide to start your blog, Chicken Scrawlings?
Well, I started the blog more than 10 years ago. I've been away from Singapore for 12 years now, and it all started as a way to keep in touch with friends and family back home. And I think that's how most people, why most people start blogs.
Okay, so your blog posts, as I mentioned in the intro, feature a lot of travel, many places around the world, and then food as well. Why should food be a big part of the travel experience?
Well, I think culturally I'm Singaporean. We love to eat. And I come from a family where, you know, I grew up cooking in the kitchen with my grandma and my mom since I was a kid. It's a huge part of our culture. And I think to get into a culture of any country, it's really through food. You see how they eat, what they eat, and you can get to know a lot about a country or nation through the food.
Well, I find it interesting reading through your blog there. You document all of your travels and the restaurants that you go to, the food that you eat. But coming back to Macau, and in general with blogging, is there a blogging community here, do you think?
Not that I know of, because when I first moved here 2 years ago, I was on the internet trying to find people to connect with and trying to find blogs to see, you know, what are key things to do and see in Macau. You find a lot of Hong Kong bloggers, you know, blogging about Macau for a day trip or for the weekend, but I actually haven't really found somebody who writes solely about Macau. Not even in the Chinese arena. I mean, maybe they're on microblogs like Weibo and WeChat. I had a friend who's now moved to Marrakesh, and she was in Macau for 4 years.
Okay.
So she had a blog, so we connected, and we did projects together, went on photo walks, cooked together. Did some photo shoot, food styling, went to restaurants together. So, and she's since left, so that's just me now.
And I guess one of the things with blogging is that pressure to be coming up with new content as well. Do you think Macau has a lot to offer to be able to do many blog posts about the area?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much to do in Macau and to eat, despite what everybody says. You know, there's still so many places I want to check out on my eat list. Mostly local restaurants, because fine dining restaurants in the casinos and all that, they're heavily publicized. But the local eateries and the hole-in-the-wall places, they don't get that much attention. So it's unless you stumble upon it, then would you realize that, oh, you know, it's the best noodles in town.
So since you're based in a few locations in Asia, and like you mentioned, you're from Singapore, how does the food and culture compare between all the different places that you've lived?
So right now I live in Macau, but I travel to Hong Kong once a week, and then I go home to Singapore a couple times a year, 5-6 times a year. I drew a similarity between Singapore and Macau because my maternal grandmother is Peranakan, so she's a straight-spawn Chinese, and they are a mix between Malay and Chinese, and most of the straight-spawn Chinese they settled in Malacca, which was also a Portuguese colony.
Right.
So I bought a Macanese cookbook, and a lot of the recipes are surprisingly similar to Peranakan Nyonya cuisine, with the sort of East-West fusion influence, and a lot of the flavors as well are quite similar, and the Malay names for certain foods are quite similar to the Macanese or Portuguese names.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so for me that's interesting because when you move to a new place, it's always about finding the familiar and the unfamiliar to sort of connect yourself to a place. And Macau has been fascinating because it connects me somehow back to my own roots as a Singaporean Peranakan through food.
Okay. So you just mentioned earlier about I guess, the next sort of restaurants that you want to tackle. And your blog features all the different kinds of eating experiences, like the casino, hotel, restaurants, and the local eateries. What kind of dining experience do you enjoy most in Macau?
I think it's a difficult question to answer because certain days you just feel like your local noodles, and other days you want to have a Michelin star dessert. It really depends on my mood. And I'm happy to say that Macau gives you all these options. If you want amazing Michelin star fine dining, whether it's Chinese or French, like you have options. But at the same time, there's so many local options, whether it's local Chinese Macanese food or Thai food. It's so readily available. And near the Red Market, there's like also a couple of Burmese restaurants. I was told that there's a small community of Burmese people, and there are a lot of little local eateries around the Red Market area that I haven't been to all of them, but I would love to try to go to as many as I can. Yeah,
it sounds interesting. So in finding these unique small businesses as well as, the typical noodle shops in Macau, do you think that they will be able to continue to thrive alongside the heavily publicised hotel dining here?
I think it's inevitable that eventually one day they would have to go with the soaring rent prices, and it's what happens to all the big cities like Hong Kong, Singapore. You're getting fewer and fewer of those mom and pop shops, hole in the wall diners. But to date, I think Macau has done a really pretty good job in terms of their expansion plans. They're filling land. They built the Cotai Strip to build new casinos. They didn't tear down the old buildings to build new buildings. But the question is, how much land can you fill in the future to be able to keep growing? So eventually, I think rent prices will go up. They would have to tear down old buildings to build new buildings.
Exactly. And I guess another thing I've noticed as well, aside from the casino restaurants and the restaurants, the family style that have existed for such a long time, Macau is you're starting to see some coffee shops. I mean, let's ignore Starbucks and Pacific Coffee, but there are some other sort of coffee shops and unique kind of cafes that would even appeal to a lot of Westerners. What are your thoughts on the emergence of these styles of eateries?
I think it's great because it's filling a gap that we all need, because previously, when we want to go to a coffee shop, we would have to go to a casino or a hotel to be able to grab a coffee. And it's nice to see Macau moving in this direction where you start to have more independent kind of concept coffee shops. And just speaking to the owners who are entrepreneurs, they've lived abroad, studied abroad, went to hospitality school, came back, decided not to work in the casino, and then they decided to do their own thing, to bring a new life to Macau, to share their experiences abroad with people here. And most of them are opened by locals. So, for example, Single Origin is run by this guy Keith.
Oh, the coffee shop.
Yeah. And he is the only European-trained barrister in Macau. So he trained in Austria. And they've opened Commune Table quite recently, earlier this year.
Yes, I've been there before for a coffee and a sandwich, I think. Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. And the crowd is very local because it's all their friends in the community. And then there is also Café Philo on the Macau side. And then there are also a couple of other cool coffee shops. Terra Coffee.
Yes, I've been there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an emerging trend, and then we have Kafka sweets and dessert and coffee in Taipa side, and they're all friends. So it's a community that work together to support each other. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with a program that they do every year. It's called Go Sees Macau.
I think I've seen that on Facebook recently. Isn't that coming up soon?
I think they do it once or twice a year. So
yeah.
they work with the Macau creatives in the creative industry, as well as these independent sort of concept stores, cafe owners. And it's kind of a Hong Kong shop walk, wine walk kind of concept where you go to different stores.
Okay.
And then, you know...
Kind of like a pub crawl, but
a little
really.
bit, yeah, like a wine walk, like shop walk.
Yeah.
And then you show your receipt and you get 10% off your next coffee or cake on the other place. And to promote themselves. So you go from one store to another, and then there are workshops where they've invited artists to, whether it's a leather bag making workshop or necklace making workshop. So they've got, it's a pretty dynamic scene. It's small, but Macau is moving towards sort of creative, indie, kind of trendy scene.
Yeah. So in terms of a tourist destination then, do you think, I mean, there's a lot of people from the mainland coming over to Macau, but do you think it appeals to a broad range of travellers?
I think yes and no. In terms of the PR and marketing that goes out about Macau, I know that the MGTO is really trying to make this a tourist destination. It's not just about casinos. But if you read all the editorials in the international newspapers like the New York Times, the Guardian, it's always talking about the same thing, St. Paul Cathedral, these churches, and then the Macanese food is always Fernando's. It's always the same thing. It's the same content repeated across all the international publications.
Yeah.
But there's another side of Macau that I think, you know, culturally it's so much more interesting to promote as a tourist destination because it's so much culture and heritage, which I feel hasn't been communicated enough.
Right.
And in terms of tourism, I think internationally, it's not an easy place to get to because long-haul flights fly into Hong Kong and then you still need to take an hour ferry to get over here. So unless you've got more than 10 days, then you might decide to make a trip to Macau. But there's so many things to do in Hong Kong. You're not going to take that ferry and trudge over, spend a day, and then go back. So in terms of destination, internationally, I would say it's not on a international tourist top list to visit.
Yes, yes. But I guess going back to the idea of blogging too, and how you said that when you came here and you'd already been blogging for several years, but it's hard to sort of find content from Macau. Do you think it'd be great if there were more people sort of blogging about Macau and offering sort of unique insights into where to go and what to do? And that?
Yeah, for sure. And I also think in terms of blogging, there's so many different segmentations. You know, it would be nice to see a fashion blog, for example, to know what are the local fashion designers doing, where can I go, are there ateliers that, you know, I can go to shop, or even a family blog. So if I'm a family traveler, I know where to take my kids, you know, top 5 things to do with your kids on a Macau weekend. But I don't fall into that category yet.
Right.
So I wish that there was a little bit more diversity, then that creates a more wholesome kind of Macau tourist destination experience.
Well, that could be something you could include in your business. Maybe start a blog with all the different topics and
that would be
maybe
a magazine.
Get a team together, you never know. Just to go back to the food, we were just talking a little bit about Macanese cuisine and the typical cuisine in Macau. Do you think it's something that people actually like? It's something that is worth promoting?
For sure, and I think historically, I was reading about it when I first came to Macau. It's like Macau is actually the birth of fusion food because the Portuguese were the first to arrive in the 1500s and claim Macau as a colony. So a lot of that fusion food, the intermarriages, it stems from such a deep history that I think people don't give Macanese food enough credit. I mean, we talk a lot about Hong Kong food, Southern Chinese food, dim sum, noodles and everything, but we don't hear enough about minchi. We don't hear enough about like the way they cook the seafood, the Macanese stew with all the charcuterie. When I talk to people, they, you know, Macanese, of course, they grew up with that, their grandma's cooking that, but other people that live in Macau, it seems like I don't know whether it's because it's a lack of interest or it's just not talked about enough or shared enough.
Mm-hmm. And I guess as well, you've got Hong Kong so close. You know, it's easy for people from Hong Kong as well as the mainland to come over and just experience Macau for a day, experience this food. Since you're also based in Hong Kong and spent a lot of time in Hong Kong, do you have friends over there? Do they come over here regularly? Is it something that people do, Hong Kongers do?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who actually come by to Macau for a weekend just to relax, or if it's a long 3-day weekend and they're not going anywhere, some of them choose to come to Macau. There are lots of things to do. Of course, the hiking scene is not as great as in Hong Kong, but you can still go to Kowloon for a walk. There's a beach, there's a hiking trail. And the food is different. You get a different variety from Hong Kong.
Okay, so to anyone, to any tourist, what would you recommend? We were just talking about international media sort of churning out the same things to see and do. Since you've been here and since you've been blogging about Macau, what would you recommend?
In terms of food or what
Everything,
to see?
yeah. If you were here, I guess, for the day, where would you go? What would you eat?
I have a lot of local eatery places that I would recommend. And one of my favorite places where I go to buy noodles, there's this family where 4 generations of them are working on noodles at the crack of dawn.
Okay.
On Macau side. So you can buy freshly made noodles, freshly made wonton skins, like the Chinese dumpling skins. They're open every day. And it's really, really fresh noodles. And they also sell bottled oyster sauce, but really pure, no preservatives, the essence of oyster sauce, basically. And right down the street, actually, it's the coconut milk, coconut ice cream guy. He's been around for 3 generations.
The one on the main road?
It's about 2 streets behind the main street of St. Paul's Ruins.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember the name of the street, but they sell only coconut. So coconut juice, coconut milk, coconut ice cream, and everything made fresh daily, which is hard to find these days. You know, everything's processed. So it's wonderful to have this sort of old school, slow food concept of organic. I don't know if it's 100% organic, but it's that kind of back to basics where you put your grated coconut into a net and make your own coconut milk rather than buying a tin of coconut milk from the supermarket. And it's, you know, Macau is charming because it has all these things, and homemade tofu or the rice flour noodles, chong fan. On Macau side as well, on the antique street, there's a guy that makes it with the old school way with the cheesecloth.
Oh,
so
okay.
super smooth, amazing chong fan. But the back streets of St. Paul Ruins, which are more kind of off the beaten path, has a lot of these amazing local eateries that I would highly recommend. So they just have to stray off the beaten path, near to the...
Away from the crowds.
Exactly. And then in terms of where to go, I really like the Macau Science Center, which not many people know is designed by I.M. Pei. It's an amazing building, a lot of play with light and shadow. And then just across the road, the Macau Cultural Arts Center, there's always plenty of nice exhibitions going on. And if you look hard enough in the program, there's always concerts and pretty interesting things going on there. So if people come for a weekend, I definitely recommend it. And of course, Kowloon for a walk, go fishing.
You've been fishing?
No, I haven't been actually, but I have a friend that goes fishing regularly in Kowloon.
Right. Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I guess then it might be, you might have a similar answer, but for expats that are living here too, I guess we tend to sort of end up living in a bit of a bubble and going to the same places and just in a bit of a routine. So what would you recommend for those of us who don't really venture out within Macau?
I think it's not an easy question for me to answer because I speak Cantonese fluently. So I'm able to go to a local eatery that only has Chinese characters on the menu. But I've seen adventurous foreigners who point to things on the next table and order. So I guess it's, you know, where's your threshold for wanting to get to know the city more deeply?
And communication can be a barrier, yes.
Yeah, sign language, pointing to the next table. It could be a fun experience, I think, but it's so easy to be comfortable and not venture outside your comfort zone. And I think over here in Macau is getting information. I find it's not the easiest way. A lot of the things that come out that's communicated out on what's going on, it's in traditional Chinese. So for an expat living here, it's apart from the ladies' club in Macau, and then groups where everybody's sharing tips and information.
Yeah.
It's really hard to pick up materials, and sometimes you pick up materials and you find out, oh, it's a really great show that's going on, but it's over.
You just missed out on that, yes.
Exactly. So I struggle with that. So I'm always trying to look for more information to blog about it because I can't find the information anywhere else. So I would imagine that there are other people that are frustrated too because there can't be nothing to do. There's lots to do. It's just that we have to look harder because we don't have Time Out Macau, or we have the Sea Guide, and then we have Macau Closer.
Yes.
But somehow they're not distributed everywhere where you can sort of pick it up, like IS Hong Kong, that's everywhere.
It's less accessible.
Exactly. So you miss out on a lot of things because you're just not in the right place to pick up something.
Going back to, you were talking about this idea of slow food and getting back to basics. I did read one of your blog posts about the red market. Now, I just tend to go to the same supermarket to just buy everything. Why should I go into the red market to buy my food?
Well, first it's an interesting experience because I like wet markets a lot, and I think especially in Asia, a lot of the culture, and you know, you really see the way people eat, you see what's available in the market. It's a window into a country's culture. And I love the red market because I get all my fresh tofu daily. They make it, sells out from this little guy in the corner opposite the red market in the little streets.
Okay.
And then there's a guy I always go to who only sells Southeast Asian products. So you get all types of mints, you get calamansi, sells a lot of Thai products, laksa leaves that I could only find it at his stall. I haven't found it in any other sort of vegetable stall. And it's also interesting that at the red market, there's a halal butcher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in a country where, well, with Macau, there's a huge Chinese community, and the backbone of the Chinese cuisine is pork.
Yes.
So you see, there's this one stall that is super clean and does halal beef and lamb, and all the Muslims go to that one particular stall to buy their meats. So it's interesting because culturally, it's you don't think about it, you know, whether the Muslims go to shop for halal food, but the red market has this one butcher that does halal meat.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's something that you do have to get used to. I've been here for nearly 3 years, I guess, but first coming here, it's getting used to not being able to have all the things that you're used to having at home. I know Macau is getting better, and it is hard because there's no room to sort of grow anything here. It's all imports. So how do you find that? I mean, obviously, from your cooking as well, you cook Chinese cuisine, home cooking, but for me, the things that I like, it's slowly getting there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we've got great supermarkets here, Park and Shop, Supreme, New Johan. Compared to living in China, I lived in Beijing for 4 years. The products that we can get here, the type of cheese, the cold cuts.
It's better than Beijing.
It's better here. So I lived in Beijing before, and you know, comparing what we have here, I think we're very privileged to be able to buy all sorts of cheese.
I would have thought it would be better in Beijing.
No, I think the import, they have high import taxes, and the government is quite strict with what they import. So for what we can buy here, I think it's quite reasonably priced, and the variety that we get is a lot better. If not, we can go to Hong Kong City Super if there's something that we want and we don't have it here.
take a suitcase, bring it back on the ferry.
Yeah, I know a lot of people do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, going back to restaurants now, let's talk about service. How do you rate the service in the different kinds of eateries here?
I think the really local eateries, it ranges from really brash service, which is very Macanese. I'm sure if you take the taxi, you've experienced it many times. And in other cases, you get really friendly old people because you're just kind of curious, like, what are you doing here? And I usually take my friends who are foreigners with me because they can't read the menu, but they're up for an adventure. And then they get curious because they've never had foreigners in their local eatery, so they're really nice.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the casino, hotels, restaurants. It's a bit of a hit or miss, as with most places. Sometimes service is amazing, and sometimes it's not so amazing.
Yeah, because I guess the thing that they're trying to do here as well, it's hard with human resources to hire people and then to train people properly. But I guess now we have two institutions, the IFT and then at the Macau University of Science and Technology, they also have a hospitality program. Do you think this can sort of help to boost service in Macau? I
think so. I think it's a step towards building like a up and coming sort of young people to be part of the service industry. And as you mentioned, I think the situation for employment and getting a blue card, it's long and tedious, and they also have a quota on how many foreigners that any restaurant or establishment can hire. Sometimes I think there is a reason why you hire external help in order to sort of raise the bar. And I think that's necessary because it doesn't make sense to just be insular and continue to train your staff within this community, but you don't have that external sort of foreign perspective to raise the bar. And you've lived in and travelled to a lot of major cities in the world that are highly regarded for their restaurant scene, for their food scene. How does Macau sort of compare with these major cities, even Hong Kong, of course? In terms of service or food?
Oh, in terms of just being known as, a sort of a foodie destination. Do you think Macau can sort of be boosted in that respect?
I think so. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Macau in terms of the food scene. And in fact, I think I eat better in Macau than in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
You have a lot more variety, of course, in Hong Kong. And of course, there's a demand and supply. You have a lot more restaurants. It's more trendy. Trends are coming out of Hong Kong. But in terms of sort of old school, back again to slow food, there's so many eateries that cook seasonal vegetables. Like it's winter melon time, so in the wet market you only see winter melon because everybody's making winter melon soup. And then there's a season for bitter gourd. Everybody's making this soup because it's seasonal. And it's just refreshing that people are still working the old school way rather than sort of just having everything on the menu and importing products to make sure that you have that same menu to feed the needs. But in Macau, it's really old school recipes, multi-generational. People are still doing things the old way, and I like that. I think it's charming.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different types of cuisines here in Macau, but what do you think we're missing? Add a few more to the pot.
As we were talking about earlier.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Maybe I've answered your question already.
Yeah. So I don't know any Greek restaurant, Lebanese or Turkish. I haven't seen a kebabs place actually in Macau, which would be really nice after a drunken night to get supper. I think it would be nice to have options.
Yeah.
There's the Turkish ice cream place near St. Paul Ruins.
Yes, yes, I've seen that one.
That's as Turkish as it gets, but I haven't actually seen any Lebanese restaurant, Greek, kind of Mediterranean sort of cuisine. So it'd be nice to have that.
Yeah, because we see Italian and even tapas, and then of course a lot of the different Asian style, Thai, Indian. But yeah, I think I agree with you. That it'd be nice to see some Greek, Turkish food in Macau. So just to finish off, I don't know how long you plan to live here, and and in terms of developing your blog and with your exploration in Macau. But over the next 5 years, with what's happening, you know, we've got the expansion of Cotai, more hotel casinos opening up. What is your outlook for Macau in terms of food and culture over these next few years?
I think there's going to be big changes because of all the new casinos that's opening, and then there's the bridge, so people can start to come to Macau by car for people who get seasick and refuse to take the ferry. So lots of opportunities there. And I also think apart from the dining scene, I think in terms of entertainment, we're nowhere near what Vegas is, but I think with the new casinos, the new shows that will be coming, it's going to bring a new vibe to the city. And with that, you have more visitors, more people coming through, more expats coming to live here. So I think, you know, it's just really going to be better and more crowded, more diversity. Because with more new people coming in, more trailing spouses coming in from everywhere, I think there is a seed to do projects, so people start things to fill needs that are not met back home. So you never know, maybe we get a Greek restaurant, maybe we get new concept cafes and stores. So I think it's all for the better for Macau, that it's going to be an exciting time for us.
There'll be a certain vibrance, hopefully.
Yeah, because with the expansion plans, I think, and the road that's going to bridge Hong Kong and Macau, so people can go from Hong Kong, Macau to China, right, across to Zhuhai, and drive to Guangzhou even. So that really kind of connects Macau much more, I think.
Yeah, and hopefully provides more and more inspiration for your blog.
I'm sure it will.
Yes, I look forward to reading more, and thank you very much, Juliana, again for coming to the talk show.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for tonight's program. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week with another special guest. See you next time.